Welcome to Dollars and Cents with Freedman Financial, the home for financial advice in a language you can understand. Created by Marc Freedman of Freedman Financial, he and his team of certified financial planner professionals will discuss timely topics that help individuals and families make smart financial decisions. And now, get ready for this week's edition of Dollars and Cents with Freedman Financial.
Welcome back to another edition of Dollars and Cents with Freedman Financial. My name is Marc Freedman.
And I'm Marion Gilman.
And we're here to provide you with some financial advice in a language you can understand. Well, it feels like the heat wave is about to break here in Massachusetts.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, it has been hot.
Yeah, absolutely. Although you missed a lot of the heat over the weekend, Mark. Last week and the weekend, huh? You had an exciting adventure, didn't you?
I did. I was in Ireland last week. It was kind of a last minute thing. Yes, who does things last minute like that? But I had a reunion over there, so it was in Limerick Island.
Right?
It was a little bit cooler, certainly foggy and rainy, and that's what it is in Ireland,
right?
That's what it is for you. But
Sounds
we had a nice
like
time.
You came back with a little bit.
Yeah, I got a little bit of congestion, a little bit of a head cold.
He's staying away from me.
But we are powering through today to make this all happen. But you know, something really interesting happened at this reunion, where there were 500, 400 people at this thing, and 30 of them were from a cast that I traveled in. I traveled in a music group called Up With People, and it was our 5-year anniversary, well, 40th year, but we do it every 5 years anniversary, and all these different casts are there. Well, because it was in Limerick, about 40% of those in the at the reunion were not from the United States.
That's
Makes
exciting.
good logical sense.
Yeah.
And though politics really didn't come up much, and it's best that it doesn't in those types of environments, there was some discussion about how everybody perceives things differently through the lens of their countries.
Very true. And maybe everything doesn't revolve around the U.S. in other people's minds, correct?
You know, what amazes me with many of these folks is how much more they know about what's going on around the world, whether it's politically, economically, environmentally, whatever it is, and it's what, as Americans, we just take a blind eye to it.
You know, interesting you should say that, because way back in the day when I was in college, I lived in France for a year, and that was my distinct impression even back then, that they knew so much more about their political system, other countries around them, because at the time it was not an EU and one currency or anything like that. And they just knew so much more about everyone else around them than we ever did in the U.S. It's like we were in our own little bubble, and we didn't even really know about American politics as much as many of the French
Absolutely.
did.
I mean, I could tell you that many of the Europeans know more about what goes on in our country than what we could even talk about. A lot of it, look, everyone gets their news from a variety of different sources, and you know, news has become more of an entertainment venue than it has become a news source these days.
In the U.S. anyways.
But just as they're articulate in what they hear about what's going on in the United States, they're equally as articulate as to what's going on in Africa, or the Far East, or the Middle East, or the Scandinavian countries, or even Europe itself.
Right.
But one of the things that I find very fascinating, as much as they understand all of their areas, they take great pride in their countries. And they all live, whether you're from Italy or Belgium or Germany or France, you take great pride in, and they do take great pride in their country. In fact, they make fun of, if you're French, you make fun of the British or the Finnish or the Swedish or whatever.
Yep.
But here in America, God forbid you tried to make fun of somebody.
Another country, another
person,
right.
Another American citizen, or make an assumption about an American citizen's heritage.
And I guess we probably should say they make fun of another country, those people that come from the other country, and nobody takes offense at it.
No, they just...
So I think that's the difference probably.
You hear from them, well, that's what the Swedish do, that's what the Spanish do, that's what the French do.
We're not Italians,
Yeah, but they all get along.
Right.
And it was a real eye-opening thing to me. But what was fascinating, I was talking with a gentleman who runs an HR placement company, an executive recruiting firm out of the Czech Republic. He's got a big job, replaces jobs for executives.
Sure. Yeah.
And he was telling me his opinions on America and our president and all of that stuff. And I'm always open to listening to those perspectives. But one of the things that I asked him, I said, you know, he was blaming America for this and blaming America for that. And I said, you know, is there anything wrong with America putting itself first? And he said, well, yeah. And I said, wait a second. You're from the Czech Republic. If things happen in your country, would you not want the Czech Republic to be put first? And he said, no. I said, really? All right, you're right. Of course I would. And so that is the problem that exists right now, is that most people, if they were in any other country, would take care of their country first. Now, America has always been the babysitter in many cases for a lot of countries because they had the most wealth. They gave a lot of money. But this idea of putting America first has really irked a lot of people. Yet, when they look at it from the lens of their own country, they're in the same situation. And so that made us want to talk a little bit about this tariff discussion that we're hearing these days.
Yes, because this is all over the news right now.
So what does it really mean? What does a tariff really mean? And I learned a lot. I've been learning a lot over the past 6 months that there were tariffs that were imposed on the United States or that we would impose on other countries, but there was never a thing such as reciprocal tariffs. And one of the things that I've learned is the Tesla, for instance. Whether you like Elon Musk or not, doesn't matter at this point. But the Tesla 3, which is the small startup car, usually sells for between $35,000 and $40,000 in America. Yet if you wanted to buy a Tesla, which they're now selling in India, what does it cost to buy a Tesla? Do you know what it costs?
I do not.
$80,000 for that same Tesla, and that has to do with the imposed tariffs that the United States has placed on India car dealerships. You want to buy our car, and this was for a period of time, there's going to be a 135% markup. Now, as you can see through the negotiations that go on through the news, it's not holding up at that number. It's more like 15 or 30%. But just on the other side in India, when I was there, we think about what it costs to buy a cell phone. Imagine you wanted to buy a cell phone, an Apple phone, a Samsung phone. Forget about all the service plans and everything. You just want to buy the phone. Here in America, that phone might cost $600, $800, right?
$800, yeah.
But the service plan is far much more.
Yeah.
If you want to buy the plan if you want to buy a phone in India, the phone can be much more expensive, yet the service plan is nothing.
And hence everybody has phones because their monthly expenses are very minimal.
Think about this. In India, and I'm using this purely as a country that, frankly, as you watch this show, there's very few people who have ever even been there. We have assumptions about India. In order to be considered wealthy in India from an income standpoint, you need to make $55,000. So it's very different. And
very different.
It's 2 billion people compared to 330 million. One of the most populated countries in the world. Yet everybody has a cell phone.
That's right.
And there's a way to make all of that happen. So the point that we're trying to make here is for us to understand what tariffs are. Why are they good and why are they bad? So we've heard Korea, not North Korea, South Korea has been in the news lately about a deal that was recently launched there. And the United States wants to impose, let's say, a 25% tariff on goods that are imported. Well, Marion, can you think of goods that are imported from Korea into the United States?
Sure. So I think a lot of electronics, refrigerators, dishwashers, things like that you might buy for your house. There are cars that get imported from South Korea.
Right, but all good things, right?
Stuff like that, yeah.
So in the news, we hear stories about, oh my God, these tariffs are going to hurt the consumer. Because if it costs, let's say, I don't know, $500 to buy a washing machine, and now there's going to be a 25% tariff, or 20%, whatever you want to call it. So there's an extra $100 that the distributor in America is going to have to pay. Well, that's $600 to buy that dishwasher, that washing machine. Right. So now he has to mark it up even higher so he can make money on his stuff.
That's true. But remember, there are a lot of points along the way where some of the participants might be able to absorb some of that
That's
tariff.
right.
Because, again, if you are marking, so again, going back to your example where there might be a 20% increase or $100 more, that's a significant increase in price. So how are they going to compete? And remember, they want to sell into the U.S. because we are a very large market for many of those appliances.
We spend a lot of money.
We spend a lot of money on that. So there will be individuals along the way, the manufacturers, maybe they're making a 8% profit and they're okay to say, okay, well, we'll drop that down to 6%. So we'll give up a bit of our profit to absorb some of the tariff. One of the intermediaries who might be the liaison between the Korean company and the U.S. market, they could absorb some of the tariffs. So there can be absorption along the way as well, and I think that's what a lot of individuals are counting on, that we won't be hit, the consumer will not be hit with the full impact of that tariff.
But I think that's the headline.
They can.
They could. But I think the headline is, ooh, this is going to hurt the consumer.
Right.
And I don't necessarily think it's going to. I think you're right. There's going to be some adaptation of costs, some places where these companies absorb some of the expenses. In addition, it is going to mean revenue to the United States government that they were never collecting before. But what it also does, more than anything else, it encourages manufacturers in the United States to try to sell their product.
That's right.
Because those companies that are manufacturing don't have to worry about those tariffs.
Yeah.
So it makes the United States, when they're selling products domestically, more competitive with the international importers.
That's right. So again, so now if the U.S. companies are selling their similar models for $600, they might be on par if nobody absorbs any of that tariff money. Or let's say they're selling for $600 and somebody absorbs some of the tariff money, so this comes in, it's now $575. You might look at it and say, you know what? I want to buy a U.S.-made product, and because there is a movement in the U.S. where there are a lot of Americans who prefer to buy American-made.
Yeah, and I'm not saying, I mean, look, you can buy products from whichever country you want to buy. You buy the product that works best for your situation. But what I think we need to, and what we try to do here on this radio show, is try to recognize that the headline that comes with these stories isn't necessarily the factual calculation. It is a possibility, it's an interpretation, but at the end of the day, calculating, sure, they'll give you an example. If an item costs this, plus you add on the tariff, of course it's going to cost more money. But you're not thinking about the fact that what if that cost of what it was initially was actually squeezed down a little bit? Yeah. What if there was additional negotiations? And we've been seeing this right along, right? Absolutely.
But also you got to think to yourself, okay, so why impose tariffs in the first place? I mean, why would anybody do this? To make sure, or to say, why should these products go up in price? And there are a lot of reasons to do that. And one of them, as you just pointed out, is to give American producers the same opportunity as a Korean producer or whoever it might be, and actually, protect their market share as well, the U.S. companies' market share, so that they're not undercut in price from some foreign people.
And I think everybody knows that in any business, the most expensive part of anybody's expense sheet in a business is labor cost.
Absolutely.
And in America, labor cost is far larger than labor cost in Seoul, Korea, perhaps, or India, or Malaysia,
China,
wherever.
Yeah.
And so there is a lot of squeezing that can be done on those prices.
That's right.
So,
and it also encourages some of the foreign countries, again, to set up manufacturing in the U.S. and provide jobs to U.S. citizens. And so that's another aspect of tariffs, is that you might bring more businesses into the country here.
Right. There's all different perspectives on tariffs.
Absolutely.
There's all different perspectives on every issue that goes through politics, goes through economics, goes through the environmental concerns that we might have.
Right.
And we pick and choose sometimes a headline here or there and just assume that's the way it's going to be. Well, chances are there's a lot of iterations.
Right. And I think one of the things we've all learned from this tariff discussion is sometimes it's just a threat.
That's all it is.
It's not necessary. I mean, we heard we are going to implement 100% tariffs. Well, that actually was rolled back pretty quickly. So, but it can be great for negotiating.
And if you're one who enjoys negotiating,
That's
and I think we all know who enjoys negotiating and tries to be the best in the world at it, or making a deal, you're going to see some extreme perspectives. And it makes your heart palpitate a little bit more sometimes when those words come out.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it's all going to work itself out.
Yeah. And remember, don't let the headlines just derail you in your thoughts, because the headlines never tell the whole story.
Right. And so what we tell our clients as we wrap this show up today is focus on the things you can control. The stuff you worry about, that you think about, that you've fantasized that this could be what would happen. Stop it. I know it's hard, but focus on what you can control. That's where you find your happiness.
That's right.
You'll be miserable if you always focus on the stuff that's beyond your control.
That's right.
And that's what we call financial advice in a language you can understand. If now's the time for you to get serious about your financial planning and investment management needs, I hope you'll give our office a call. 978-531-8108. That's 978-531-8108. Or visit us on the web where you can learn a lot about how we do financial planning, how we manage money, how we work with our clients, who our clients are. There's all sorts of categories.
And who we are.
Yeah, us too. I think more people want to know the type of clients we work with. Maybe they want to know us.
Maybe not.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
But you always want to see, well, how am I doing compared to others? Or what
How
are the
do I
types
fit
of
in?
clients? Yeah, how do I fit in? People want to know that. Go to our website, freedmanfinancial.com. That's Freedman.
Too easy in a day.
Financial.com. I almost screwed it up.
See?
It's that sickness that I have here. Let's try that one more time.
Affecting your brain.
Yeah, Freedman Financial. That's Freedman.
Fine.
We'll do it one more time. So visit freedmanfinancial.com. That's Freedman.
Too easy in a day.
Financial.com. That's going to do it for us, because if we have any more bloopers, we're going to have to shut this whole thing down.
That's right.
Have a great night, everybody. We'll see you again next week with more dollars and cents and financial advice in a language you can understand.
Enjoy.
During today's episode of Dollars and Cents with Freedman Financial, your host may have discussed specific financial planning and investment ideas that are for general information only and not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations. Please remember that investing involves risk and may include loss of principal. Always consult a certified financial planner professional, qualified attorney, or tax advisor prior to investing to determine what is appropriate for you. Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA, SIPC.